In 1972, in New Mexico, mysterious artifacts were found that led to one of the most intriguing scientific and anthropological discoveries ever made. The discovery, code-named the Ancient Arrow Project, consisted of 23 chambers and connecting tunnels hollowed out deep within a huge, natural rock structure in a remote canyon of northern New Mexico. Inside this massive and well-hidden structure were incredible artifacts of a culture that was of undeterminate origins. In each of the 23 chambers were found wall paintings, various alien technologies, and strange encoded hieroglyphs. By most appearances, the discovery was like a natural history museum from an alien race. It became known among researchers as ETC, or Extraterrestrial Time Capsule. Because of carbon dating analysis, it was initially assumed that this time capsule was left behind by extraterrestrials that had visited Earth in the 8th century AD. However, it wasn't until 1997 that the encoded language found within the site and its artifacts became accessible. It was then that it was determined that the time capsule was actually designed and built by a future version of humankind who were adept in interactive time travel. These humans were from 750 years in our future and went back over 1,000 years in our past to create this underground time capsule for the sole purpose of us finding it in our present day. They called themselves the Wingmakers. The material found in the 23 hidden chambers included artwork, poetry, music, and information, all designed to help in the process of deprogramming while avoiding the censorship of this controlled reality. Mankind is at a crossroads, and the material is meant to help set humanity on a path of escaping the construct to realize our own sovereign power we have inside our human bodies, and avoiding going down the transhumanist path where we try to evolve by combining technology with our physical vessels. One of the scientists involved in the Ancient Arrow Project, after realizing the importance of the information and that the agency he worked for were in favor of the transhumanist path and had no intention of sharing the information with the public, defected from the group and with the help of a journalist began releasing the Wingmakers material on the internet. The journalist did a series of 5 interviews with the scientist. The first 4 were released within the first few years after the time of the interviews in the late 90s. However, the information in the 5th interview was far too radical and would be withheld for another 15 years. The timing had to be right. It exposed the cabal running the government, that what we consider reality was really a programmed matrix or simulation. The Wingmakers refer to it as the hologram of deception. And perhaps most important of all, how we can exit this hologram of deception through what they call the Grand Portal, with the use of the sovereign integral process. This hologram of deception's primary program is to unite humans in separation. This separation is experienced in every aspect of our life. Culture, race, religion, politics, worldviews, and belief systems all have this foundation of separation at their core. This aligned perfectly with the image I got in my mind when I had the idea to start this channel, Unbiased and on the Fence. In the image, I could see that the true way to overcome separation was to rise above all the constructs designed to unite us in division, and come together to unite as one in love and equality. It was the same message I discovered Jesus had come to teach. The Wingmakers explain that the human bodies are biological hosts for the infinite beings that we are inside of them. We are suppressed by deceptive programs designed by entities from a different dimension. Humanity is unaware that we live in a designed reality, and that the designed reality includes, well, everything. Although much of the information is out there, it has been twisted in such a way to keep humanity from discovering the truth, to keep us moving from one group to the next, ever separated from the whole. and the idea of our reality being a hologram or programmed simulation of sorts was just too far from the way science viewed our reality 2 decades ago. It's now clear why the information contained in the 5th interview was just far too radical to be released. But things have drastically shifted in recent years. There's been a number of reports in scientific journals in recent years that what we perceive as a 3D reality could in fact be projected from a 2D source. Combining this information with the fact that some of science's most mind-boggling anomalies can be solved quite easily when considering our reality as some sort of programmed matrix. In the double slit experiment, it's proven that a conscious observer makes photons stop behaving like waves of potential and start behaving like particles. This parallels nicely with the way humans create simulations in games, where everything you observe in the game is alive and active, but only while you're observing it. A busy city in a game is only busy where you're observing it. Once you're not looking, it's no longer there. It's only waves of potential awaiting the next observer, so to speak. This is done to reduce the processing power needed to run the program. How about the speed of light being the maximum speed of our reality, and the connection we see between time and space? Why does movement affect time? The closer we get to the speed of light, the slower time moves. This is no longer a paradox when you understand the connection the two would have to have in a simulated reality, where everything is connected by the consciousness engine running it all. Let's consider quantum entanglement, where two particles separated by great distances still react instantaneously, even faster than the speed of light, as if they're still connected somehow. In a programmed reality, it's easy to see that they are still really connected through the matrix programming, and the time and space are only an illusion created by the hologram programming. How about the Mandela effect? For those who observe reality changing in seemingly impossible ways, it becomes much easier to imagine a simulation where the equivalent of a few keystrokes can alter reality. These edits to reality can be made in such a way that some people see them and some don't. Why residue that points to a single reality that has been altered suddenly makes more sense. Why people posing next to a statue that has been edited within this reality remain in their original pose. Something other theories that rely on alternate timelines and parallel universe never account for.
Host the show. And so this is Off Planet Radio, Off Planet TV. I'm Randy Moggins. I'm here with my co-host Emily Moyer, and we're going to kind of launch into what is basically the follow-up on a show we did several moons ago with Cliff High. We're going to go back into time tonight, or maybe out of time. Who knows? We ran out of time the last time. That's right. That's how that worked. So this time we're going to focus on temporality and aspects of the woo that goes into time.
The little bloop theory works this way. There's this pulse. The pulse travels throughout all of known universe 22 trillion times a second. And then there's a pause, 22 trillion times a second. So it flickers on and off really, 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 really fast. And that pulse has tricked our brains into thinking that we are solid, because it's happening so fast we can't push our hands through ourselves 22 trillion times a second, right? But some people can, and this is, you can find on YouTube, here's yet another tangent. You can find this guy, John Chang, out of the Indonesia. Now he may even be in the jungles of the Philippines. And this guy can take a chopstick and he can push it through a table. Because he can do this so fast, he's a Taoist, he knows how to basically tell the table to slow down for a second, he pushes it through, and the material blends in a way that you can't duplicate any other way. You have to saw the chopstick off to see that it's actually blended with the wood of the table. So he's really good at this, but he's not working at 22 trillion times a second. I don't know how fast he is working, but he's working with that understanding that we're talking about now in terms of how universe is actually constructed. Now, time is locally discrete. But every bit of time that's brought in by these little bloops contributes to the ever-present now. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting, because we have the concept of missing time. And then you have to start thinking about it. Okay, so having experienced this, I ask myself some questions, and then I work very diligently in thinking about it for a number of years to arrive at certain conclusions. One of the questions is, what is actually occurring in an episode of missing time? Is time itself changed, or is it I, the experiencer, that is somehow altered, and thus I end up with what we call missing time? And I have to think that it is not time being altered. It is rather the experiencer being altered in such a level that there are no longer temporal markers being recorded in the body during that passage of that time. So basically I'm saying that the time still exists. I was missing in the time as opposed to the time being missing. But there is duality there, which gives rise to the idea that perhaps we are in a holographic universe. However, thinking about it this way provides us some sort of benefits. Some of the benefits are understanding ourselves. So we're energetic. We're actually recreated by that pulse of energy 22 trillion times a second in our condensed form. But that means that each and every one of our atoms is actually bringing in and recreating its own space and its own connection to the ever-present now. And we also know that the pulse is in fact consciousness. Okay, there is nothing other than consciousness. You can't alter it, change it, or anything. However, we are consciousness experiencing ourselves as these condensates that are created by consciousness creating complexity so fast as an energetic pulse that it plops out in all these little bloops that recreate our bodies. Now, this gives rise to some other interesting thoughts. It means, in a sense, that we are indeed energy, that we have an aura because we're being recreated as we move through space, and we're destroyed 22 trillion times a second so that we can move that next little bit through space. And it also means that our auras and our energy bodies can be thought of as an atmosphere around us. And that these energy bodies are expressions in the same way our physical body is an expression of consciousness. And so the energy body around us is consciousness pulling in and collecting and creating all the little bloops that is each of us and everything else around us, the microphones, the cameras, all of this crap. But with us, we have an energy body that is consciousness expressing itself, and it's alive. It also gives rise to prescience, to the idea that you can predict the future.
I have a question.
Sure.
There's sometimes this blinking in and out 22 trillion times a second. Does it ever sometimes make a mistake? And something that was there doesn't quite link back the way it was. And so you notice these small changes in the space or the time field around you or whatever. And then sometimes it repairs itself and comes back. And is this where something is that what the Hadron Collider is doing, or is that what some of these things that are creating the Mandela effect are doing? Is that they're basically making some sort of error in the
a wrinkle. Let's just call it a wrinkle in time.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And so yes, you're quite correct. That's a natural, logical assumption, is that it's not going to be perfect with us as consciousness monkeying about with things where we're trying to create enough energy to disrupt the pulse. And that's basically what things like CERN are attempting to do.
And that's why we're noticing so many more weird anomalies and errors and not quite right things than we used to, because there's this thing that's interrupting with the natural electric pulse of the universe.
Correct. And guess what we are? We are experiencers. We are vibratory antennae that is specifically built by universe to suck up and be sensitive to time and space.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can trick our consciousness into being really dull about it and say, oh no, ESP doesn't work. I always feel bad at my grandmother's house, and it has nothing to do with the fact that, it's the place, it's the space there or some other thing. And so you can densify your thinking such that you don't pay attention to it, but you cannot, so you can ignore reality, but you can't really ignore the consequences of reality. Now, the little bloop theory is really interesting, especially as what you brought up, which is CERN. So if we examine CERN just logically, densify ourselves for a second and just go to mere facts, this is the biggest machine humans have ever made. It's bigger than the pyramids. It's bigger than all of the pyramids in terms of its impact on the planet. It's large. It goes through all those countries. And we've never generated as much electricity in a single project before. It's more expensive than any single project that humans have ever done. Because in 2013, in early 2013, they fired off CERN and they achieved something. And then they lied to us and told us, oh, we found this particle. And, you know, the Higgs boson particle, or, you know, whatever. They give it some name. It's meaningless. Everybody just shrugs it off. Oh, okay, they found a little nothing. We put more money, more tithing into the New World Order and into the deep state for this one machine than anything else on humanity. This machine costs more than all the universities on the planet. And it uses more electricity than anything else. And we're doing what? You know, we're supposedly finding out a little bits about particular subparticles. And that's not really what it's for. What really it may be intended to do is to provide somebody validation for our understanding of the little bloop theory. And they think that they're going to be, it's possible that they think they're going to be able to twist time and do things, right? However, we have to acknowledge that they're doing it with the planet. Okay, this is not only our first largest machine that's ever been made. This is the first time humanity is doing a planet-wide exercise or experiment. But just looking at it at a macro level, we're putting vast quantities of electricity into the Earth as a whole. And they're doing it in the largest continental mass that exists on the planet, which is the Eurasian continent. That the quartzite that they're in, that material is found basically running all through way deep into Russia, way deep into China, and it is the part of the anchoring rocks on top of the bedrock, and then goes into the bedrock itself. And so here we're shoving vast quantities of electricity into the Earth, and no one said anything. No feasibility studies, no environmental impact statements, none of that. They put all of our money and all of our treasure into this thing all of these years now, and they're getting what out of it? Occasionally it works, or they're telling us occasionally that it works. Here they're actually monkeying with the planet itself. And you hear the stories about the idea that, well, maybe CERN is going to try and create this one particle that's an antimatter particle, and it's going to maybe blow the planet to bits. And that's feasible with the amount of energy they're putting into the quartzite. They could indeed cause a rupture or a rift or something. I don't think that that's likely. And then you also hear the stories about, well, CERN is breaking. Okay, whenever it comes to these really key experiments, it breaks down and doesn't work. And so one of the scientists said, well, one of the physicists said this, that one of the theories is that indeed it actually does work, and we do destroy the universe. And so the universe being self-repairing, it comes back before we destroy it and breaks the machine. And so that we don't go ahead and then destroy it until the next time we destroy it, and then it comes back and does this. Little bloop is chaos, continuous change, etc. And so because we're in that kind of a universe, it's really easy to understand the idea of what this guy is saying. And because we are consciousness experiencing time and ourselves within universe, and the universe itself is created by consciousness whipping all around, it's quite possible that CERN is doing things that are causing the universe to have to repair itself. And in fact, look, we can actually alter time within our own perceptions.
Yes.
And we will do it sometimes to trick ourselves or amuse ourselves, daydreaming. That has a feel to it that, you know, you're a passenger in a car on a long trip, and you might just daydream as the stuff passes you, and you have a different perception of time.
Meditation does that as well, basically reaching a state of timelessness.
Correct.
You're not consciously aware of time when you're meditating.
Music, dancing, anything that has like a syncopated right-left kind of rhythm to it, whatever, all of those things can do that. Cliff, I have a question.
Sure.
I had and it was fun. I had a funny experience just last weekend, and I was looking forward to telling you about this. It was the weekend before last. I was going to meet a friend to see a film that he had worked on, and I was late leaving dinner with my friends to meet him, and I knew there was like no way I was going to really be able to get there on time. Like I knew it. I was leaving Silver Lake trying to get to Hollywood. And, you know, I go the fastest way, or what the stupid phone is saying is the fastest way. And of course, I'm on the way that they're saying is fastest and looking at the way where they're saying is more traffic and seeing that one's moving and I'm sitting in traffic. So I'm pissed and I know I'm going to be late. But right before I left where I had been coming from, I sent my friend who I was meeting a text message saying I was leaving now. And for some reason, I don't usually do that. I felt like that was really important. And I felt like I was working the whole time I was traveling to sort of stretch time. And I got to the area where I was meeting him, and there was no place to park. And I finally found this building where I had to pay an exorbitant amount to park. But I parked on the 10th floor of the building at 7:57, and I was meeting him at 8 o'clock, right? And so I sent him a text saying, I'm leaving the parking lot right now. The elevator was broken. I walked down the 10 floors. I had to go out to Hollywood Boulevard. I stood for at least 3 minutes at the crosswalk. Went across the street. This is Mann's Chinese Theater, so it's huge. I'm having to navigate, go up to the 3rd floor, find which theater it's at, all of that kind of stuff. And the whole time I'm looking at my clock, and it's not moving. And I get there, it's not changing. The time isn't changing. And I get there, and like my friend sent me a text at said he was trying to send me a text at 7:58. He was trying to send the text. He was having trouble, and he couldn't believe how long 7:58 was going on for. It was like for some reason something was wrong with his phone. I meet him in the hallway at 7:59 and 30 seconds. We get inside and we're in our seats right when it's at 8 o'clock. But I swear to God, from the time, it was way more than a minute and a half between when I parked my car and when I got there. But somehow I feel like the fact that I kind of created that anchor with him and saying that I'll be there, I'm leaving that now, I'll be there, provided me something to sort of work, like a rubber band to sort of stretch time out. And he said it was the weirdest thing. He couldn't figure out what was going on because he was looking at his phone at 7:58. 3 minutes later, it's 7:58. You know what I mean? It's just, he couldn't believe it. What is something like that? And was there some sort of connection created between he and I that was allowing a stretchage of time? Or was it just my consciousness and knowing? Was it me practicing some level of time control? Filtering out some aspect of time?
There's a lot of that, yeah. And not just filtering it out, but actually interacting with it. So get back to the idea of our energy bodies. Our energy bodies extend out much further from us physically. They also extend out further temporally because they're one of the first parts that's recreated each time. And there's a lag time on our energy bodies before it gets to the dense matter of us being recreated. And so it's happening 22 trillion times a second, but it is actually perceptible because we're consciousness and we can connect with consciousness. So what you were doing is this. You were basically projecting your consciousness outside of your condensate and putting it further into your energetic or psychic atmosphere. So you were indeed connecting with him. And between the two of you, in a sort of quantum entrainment kind of fashion, you were altering your combined perception of the passage of time and what was allowed within that. So, you see the Jackie Chan movies or some of these martial art movies, and where the master says, well, of course you can float up to that window, right? It's only your mind that's stopping you from doing it. It's only your mind that thinks that you're bound by gravity, and that if you really could think about it in a different way, you can just spring right on up there. And so I do a lot of this in Aikido, where they do the key arts. And some of those things are, you make yourself heavy and people can't lift you up, or you make yourself extremely light and all of a sudden they just, two very small people can lift you way the hell up with no problem at all. And so you're actually altering the local conditions within space and making that malleable with your consciousness the same way that you can do with time. So the master in any of these arts, and it doesn't matter whether it's an art expressed as music or whether it's an art expressed in a martial fashion or dance or any of that, the masters at that level can move faster than what the rest of us would seem to think could be allowed by the time that actually occurred.
So is that what I was doing?
That's what you were doing.
You were basically operating at an increased vibratory rate, correct?
Correct. Exactly so. She had been able to change her perception from the regular condensate level, operating at 60 frames a second, and all of a sudden she's being able to operate at 100 frames a second or 120 or something, double and so on. It's just like the people in war or extreme conditions like that will continuously report, I don't know how I made it up that hill before the explosion, right? This kind of thing. Or how I dodged the bullets. It's just not possible.
I made it just in time.
Yes.
Well, also, I always think about mastering of time as being, instead of it being like, oh, I have to hurry to get there by 12 o'clock, thinking of it as it will become 12 o'clock as I arrive there.
That's a much better way to think about it.
Yeah.
And so time is malleable. You've just basically proved in that experience what codes to think about. Are we noticing such things more because CERN exists and because what they've been doing with time? Is CERN trying to do at a planetary level what they're supposedly doing with UFOs to create the ability to jump in time? That is to say, UFOs that we're aware of that travel outside of time do so by taking a particularly dense element that's very stable unless you do bombard it with a single particle, and they have a particle accelerator within the UFO that shoots a single particle, and it goes across the top of this heavy, dense element, and it causes that element to instantly vaporize into antimatter and yield 100% of its molecular structure back to energy, back to pure consciousness, if you will, okay? The underlying pulse. It basically strips off the condensate and allows that stuff to become instantly the energy amount in the pulse that allowed that matter to be created. And so that's another way of thinking of E equals mc squared. That if you were able to do things, you can strip the matter condensate away and see the pulse happen. Only in this case, it causes this antimatter explosion. All that energy is turned into causing an effect in consciousness, very much like you're discussing, that causes a big time dilation. And the whole spaceship can go from this part of universe to this part of universe in one of those 22 trillion times a second voids. So that the next time it's recreated, it's halfway across the galaxy or even further. And so it's this templating idea, right? That our consciousness is existing in a form of a template. And that template can be recreated here, where I am now. Or if I knew how to do it, I could maybe make a copy of the template and have it appear in Benares, India. And they call that co-location or bilocation, right? You're in two places at the same time. One of the copies is always far less distinct than the other because it's being recreated and you're trying to manage being created by the pulse in two different places.
Right.
Now, neither backward nor forward exist. Remember our original document here that talks about
the everlasting now.
Right.
Yeah, and basically we've got this idea of that the future does not really exist. All that exists is the ever-present now, but it's being recreated 22 trillion times a second. So, because of our perception not working at that level, we don't actually see, so to speak, we don't have any way of perceiving the flow of the recreation through us. And so as we join each new instance of the ever-present now, there are other shadowy kind of images of the next now getting staged, ready to be recreated because it's happening in 22 trillion times a second. So we can go out, according to Dean Radin, 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, okay, 6 seconds.
Yeah.
You'll be sitting there and you'll know, oh, so-and-so is going to call. Absolutely, right? And it happens a few seconds later. Or you're sitting they've done the experiments in classrooms. You're sitting in a classroom, the doors, you're in there all alone, and the door is shielded. No way of knowing what's going on, and people know up to 10 seconds before another human gets to that door.
Is that also something to do with the fact that our highest mind, or our knowing mind, our all-knowing mind, or whatever, that part of our consciousness exists sort of outside of time, and when our body mind or our present time mind connects with that, we get certain sort of hints or warnings of what's just about to come?
Correct.
Okay.
There's also another level of that. That's expressing through the fact that we're consciousness fields, and that we extend way out beyond our physical condensate. And so my consciousness field, even independent of the heart rate field that can be sensed with a particular kind of electronics, or like the heat signatures that they get in helicopters when they're scanning crowds and stuff, right? Okay, so those are radiative kinds of energies, but our consciousness is much finer and radiates out much further. And so we can actually feel other people's consciousness, and we can, just as you did with your friend, you can join those for some period of time, and also use that as your anchor or your altering in the shared experience of time. So the student...
And of course, you can find all of that at Cliff's website, halfpasthuman.com. And that's going to wrap.
And you can find Cliff back here with us sometime soon for part 3.
Very soon.
For part 3 on time.
We will, because we have lots of it. That's going to wrap it up for this time. This is Off Planet Radio. Randy Moggins with Emily Moyer, and our very special guest, Cliff High, is with us. Battle's out there. It's inside you. Go forth. Fight it now. Good night.
This is Off Planet Radio.